Hi, this is Eric from longboxreview.com. Welcome to this episode of Center Seat, my Star Trek podcast. I am going to finally, after waiting for far too long, talk about Star Trek Picard Season 1. So I had watched this on CBS All Access shortly after the season finale, after the season finale premiered, because I don't subscribe to CBS All Access all the time, so I was waiting until that was done. Oh, wait, no, it might have actually have been a little bit later, because whenever Star Trek Discovery Season 2 was out and Star Trek Picard Season 1, so I was coordinating being able to watch both of those around the same time and do so within a month period, so that I had that free month of Star Trek or free month of CBS All Access. So, but given that Star Trek Discovery Season 3, I believe, has just started at the time of this recording, and that Star Trek Lower Decks has concluded its first season, I think I might have to shell out some money and pay for a limited run of access to CBS All Access, so that I can continue to watch this Star Trek stuff, probably in a more timely fashion, so that I can, again, in a more timely fashion, get these Center Seat episodes out. So I wanted to talk about Star Trek Picard Season 1. I'm going to talk about Star Trek Discovery Season 2 eventually. I've taken notes on both. As I said, I've been sitting on this for a little while, mostly because life stuff got in the way, and I just haven't had time to devote to recording podcast episodes. And if you listened also to the Gutters episodes in the feed not too long ago, from when I will post, because I'm recording now, but I'm talking about as if I've already done it. But there's no time travel per se in Picard, so I guess that doesn't really work. Anyway, there's an explanation of sorts about some stuff that had gone on with me recently. So if you're interested in that, you can go listen to the Gutters episode. But I'm not here to talk about me. I'm here to talk about Picard Season 1. And I have to say, if you have not watched Star Trek Picard yet, do not listen to this podcast yet. Or this episode, because I will be talking about specific things and spoilery things about the season, about the episodes. So you are warned if you go any further than this. So as I said, Star Trek Picard was created for CBS All Access, which is where they debut all of their new Star Trek stuff, which is, again, I think I've talked about this before in a previous Center Seat episode. I find that very irritating that I have to pay this premium digital service so that I can watch Star Trek. But, I do it because, well, I haven't actually, but I will, because they know they got me by the you-know-whats, because it's Star Trek and I love it. So anyway, like I said, created for CBS All Access by Akiva Goldsman, Michael Chabon, Kirsten Beyer, and Alex Kurtzman. Kurtzman was the executive producer on the series, along with Stewart, as well as James Duff, Akiva Goldsman, Michael Chabon, Trevor Roth, Heather Caden, and Rod Roddenberry. Yes, that Roddenberry, or the son of that Roddenberry. In addition, Aaron Byers was a co-executive producer. Writer Kirsten Beyer devised the concept for the series, and she was part of the writing staff alongside Kurtzman, Duff, Goldsman, and Chabon, with Chabon having served as the first season's showrunner. And I read today that he may not be back for season 2 as a showrunner. He may contribute, but he's apparently busy doing some other stuff, so he couldn't be showrunner again. And I mention that because, part of the success of a show like this, where there's a few episodes, and it's kind of done in the same kind of model as the British model, where you have few episodes, but it's run by the same person. And typically, I guess some of those British shows they tend to have the same main writer, and that's not the case here. but it's kind of that. It's kind of maybe a bit of a hybrid model, I guess. Of course, I'm also talking about things that I don't really have all that great knowledge about. So just kind of my how I see this kind of stuff based on knowing a little bit about television production. So, take that as you will. So the Star Trek Picard is set 20 years after the events of Star Trek Nemesis, that motion picture that came out a while back now. I don't remember the year, but anyway, so I like that. It's set in the Prime Star Trek universe, not the Kelvin universe, the J.J. Abrams reboot with Chris Pine and the rest. And so we see Picard, like I said, 20 years after the events of Nemesis, and we find him retired to his vineyard and is an advocate, or maybe a former advocate, for the Romulan people after this devastation that occurred. Alison Pill stars as Agnes Girardi. She's a doctor and expert on synthetic life who joins Picard's mission. These are the main characters. Issa, or I think it's Issa Briones. I should probably look these names up. Who played several characters. We see her first as Daj, and then mostly as Soji Asha. So she plays, like I said, this is spoilery stuff now. She plays an android. She is an android but these androids have organic bodies and created as daughters of Data, both Daj and Soji. So that was very interesting, that reveal. As I got to that, Evagora as Elnor, a Romulan refugee who Picard abandoned as a boy and who was raised by the Qowat Malat, I think that's how they say it, a sect of all-female Romulan warrior nuns. And I kind of think that they should do at least an episode devoted to the Qowat Malat, if not a miniseries or even an entire series, because I find that new element in the Star Trek universe really fascinating. Michelle Hurd played Rafaela, or Rafi Mussaker. She was Picard's former Starfleet aide, who now struggles with substance abuse and an estranged relationship with her son. That comes to play in a later episode. Santiago Cabrera as Cristobal, or Chris Rios, a former Starfleet officer and the captain of La Serena, which is the ship of the show. Cabrera also portrays, which is one of the best things about the show, I will just tell you right now, portrays the emergency holograms aboard La Serena, and they all have different accents, which I just loved. I loved it. This actor I'm sure had a fun time portraying all these different facets of his personality, which is how I kind of took those holograms anyway. Harry Treadaway played Narek, the Romulan agent sent to seduce and spy on Soji. And Peyton List as Narissa, another Romulan agent working with Commodore O of Starfleet Security, and turns out to be Narek's sister. Some notable guests on the show, Brent Spiner, again, spoilery, as Data. Well, I guess not spoilery. As Data and Dr. Alton Inigo Sung. Jonathan Frakes as Riker. Marina Sirtis as Troy. Jerry Ryan as 7 of 9. Jonathan Del Arco as Hugh. Hugh is back. Tamlin Tomita as the aforementioned Commodore O. And Orla Brady as Laris, along with James McShane as Zaban, or is it Jaban? Or Jaban, I can't remember now. They played the Romulan housekeeper / companions of Picard's in the first couple episodes. And I loved those two. It was a pity that we did not get more with those two characters. I really hoped that we would have come full circle with the season by having those two characters show up at the end, and they don't. It's one of my nitpicks about the show. So anyway, like I said, this is so the overall plot of the season. This is kind of my distillation of that. 20 years after Nemesis, like I said, 14 years after Picard left Starfleet, he is visited by Daj, who is as I said, a biosynthetic who turns out to be Data's quote-unquote daughter. Picard puts together a new crew to find Daj's sister Soji and to save her from Romulans intent on destroying her and all synthetics. So what I thought I would do next is provide some just overall thoughts about the series and then go through the episodes and give you some of my notes about the episode, things I liked, things I didn't like, and then talk about the kind of like the overall impact or what I'd like to see or how I felt about the show as a whole. So just some initial thoughts here. I just, like many people, I found it very enjoyable to see Patrick Stewart reprise his role as Picard, and also see other notable TNG characters like Riker and Troy, and I guess, yes, Data. But I felt the overall plot was a bit of a mess and ultimately didn't really do anything to move the Star Trek universe or even Picard to a certain extent forward in a way that I enjoyed or thought was novel. So it just kind of was. It was touching on Picard 20 years later and some stuff happened. I know, it's just my opinion. Throughout the run of the episodes, I felt like the show was like watching the show was playing a game of booyah. Like, for example, using the F word in Star Trek, boo, seeing the prime timeline 24th century Earth again, yay. The prophecy involving synthetics that can drive you mad, boo. Seeing the band back together, meaning Will, Deanna, 7 of 9, Picard, all the people that we are familiar with. Yay! Sort of. Picard's ridiculous French accent while on Free Cloud. Boo! And as I said before, Rios's holograms. Yay! So there's, like I said, there's a lot of booyah about this show and about the particular episodes. So I don't know. Your mileage may vary, but I'd be very interested to hear what your thoughts are about Picard. And you can always email me at longboxreview@gmail.com to let me know. So let's get into the episodes. I'm going to assume that you have watched them and you know of the points that I'm going to touch on. Before I get into this, though, I just want to say, like I said, I watched this months ago and I haven't watched it since. I took notes shortly after I watched it so that I would be able to do what I'm doing now. But I obviously, like I said, I had planned to do this much before or way before now. So my memory might be a little off. Might be getting a few things wrong. So bear with me and just let me know if I've gotten something really wrong here. But the first episode, Remembrance. So, boy, I loved that first episode. Generally speaking, I love seeing Picard again. He's on the vineyard, which was a nice callback to what we saw in All Good Things, the series finale of The Next Generation. I adored the look of the series, the way it was, the cinematography of it, the warm colors. We saw, we saw exteriors. We saw the sun, things like that. It wasn't just. I didn't get the feeling that there was a lot of. Well, I should say it this way. I responded very well to the fact that we weren't on a soundstage the whole time watching this series. So. Or at least this episode, because I love that aspect of it. It made me feel like I was living within the 24th century with Picard in a weird sense, right? So I really like that. One of the other characters that we didn't get to see a whole lot of, unfortunately, I totally wished. And part of the reason I say this, I'm going to say this, is because they promoted this character in the promo spots for the show. And this is Picard's dog, number one. I tell you what, when I saw that he first called the dog number one, I just thought that was the most adorable thing, and I wanted to rename my dog. But again, just like the Romulan housekeepers, caregivers, I don't think we maybe saw the dog once after that, after the first couple episodes. But not enough. They should have brought the dog along a la Captain Archer in Enterprise. Anyway, like I said, I really loved the look of the episode. The two Romulans, what are their names again? Laris and I'm going to say Zaban. I'm going to say Zaban because that sounds better than Zaban. I should have looked this up to see how that's pronounced. Laris and Zaban. I just really love those two. Their relationship, their individual relationships with Picard. I love the fact that they were part of the rescue operation that Picard convinced Starfleet to be a part of, and then they later abandoned it. But they have a debt of gratitude towards Picard because of what he did, but it's not just a one-sided relationship. They are giving back to him in a lot of different ways, which is why I was very disappointed that we didn't get to see them more. They could have brought those two characters along and not had another character that they brought into this, or two characters, if I'll be honest, because there's one character in this show I did not like. I'll get to that, but there was a mention of Bruce Maddox in that first episode, and if you know your Next Generation history, Bruce Maddox had a pivotal role in one episode in particular and was mentioned in at least one more, if not a few more episodes of the Next Generation. And so I thought that little name drop was again kind of cool. You don't really need to know that if you did not watch those Next Generation episodes, but it's a nice little callback, a nice, not really an Easter egg as such, but it was nice to hear a continuity or see a continuity here in Picard, extending back to the Next Generation episodes. And then at the end, it was kind of cool, but also kind of not, to see the Borg cube, because the Borg and the cube as a symbol of the Borg, it's a shorthand to tell us, the viewers, the fans of Star Trek: The Next Generation, that something big is about to happen here. So in the way the episode ended, showing us the Borg cube in the way that they did, it was presented like as a potential menace, and like I said, as it should be. And then, but you see, I think we saw this in the first episode. It wasn't just the Borg cube that was there. There are Romulans there, and so Borg plus Romulans. What does this mean? Oh my God! This is the two, arguably two of the biggest enemies of the Federation. So why this I ended that, watching that episode, feeling really good about seeing Picard again, and the look and feel of the show and the 24th century at that time. And then they hit us with the Borg cube and the Romulans. It's like, whoa, this is going to be this series is going to be cool. And so I was really excited to watch more episodes, which brings us to episode 2, Maps and Legends, in which we get more ties to the past. There's a mention of Picard's illness, the fact that he, will eventually, I don't know if they actually say this in this episode or not, but he will die from this thing. It's old age won't be why Picard ends up kicking the bucket. It's because of this illness. And I think this has ties to the condition that is referenced again in All Good Things. I'm not entirely certain of that, but I feel like that's true. So if I feel it's true, it must be true, right? We learn about the splinter group of the Tal Shiar, which is called the Zatvash. I that point is fine, I guess. Why couldn't they just call it a Tal Shiar? Why can't it just be the Tal Shiar instead of this splinter group, or this, I don't know, the ultra secret Tal Shiar group? I don't know. Just seemed like a plot point or a point in the story that just I don't know. I didn't respond very well to it. What I did think was really kind of cool was Commander O, who is this Vulcan director of Starfleet security. And we see she's wearing sunglasses. A Vulcan wearing sunglasses. I mean, if that doesn't let you know that this is not your dad's Star Trek, I guess this is it. I will say though, thinking back on this, a Vulcan wearing sunglasses. Of course, she's not fully Vulcan. We find out later, but in hindsight, that should have been a clue that Commodore O was perhaps hiding something, maybe a little too on the nose, right? Anyway. So this episode also, the cast expands. We get Dr. Girardi in here. Who else? I think this is the one where Rafi shows up. We get to see Starfleet headquarters in the late 21st century. Anyway, I liked it. I love seeing Starfleet headquarters in this way. I don't know. There was something about it. I think it was mostly because it looked lived in. There were so many people around, so many officers and cadets and support staff. I just felt like the world was so much bigger because we got to see all this stuff going on in Starfleet headquarters. So, and we got to see the new uniforms that Starfleet has, which, I have this love-hate relationship with Star Trek and their uniforms because they change so much. And, it's just obviously from a production standpoint, they change these things because they can. They it looks cooler, or like with the movie uniforms after the second Next Gen movie, they wanted to have these movie quality uniforms, I guess, and then those were brought into Deep Space Nine. However, the uniforms that we see here in Picard, Starfleet has gone back to a design reminiscent of the uniforms that we first saw in early Deep Space Nine, and of course Voyager, with the color on the department color, or it's not really a department, is it? Whatever it is, the organizational colors with command, sciences, and operations, or whatever it is, support. But they've gone back to that with like I said, the shoulder area, and then the rest of the uniform is black. So that is very evocative of the, like I said, early Deep Space Nine and Voyager series. So with some nice little changes to make it look better. I liked it. I like those uniforms better than those earlier versions. So that was kind of neat to see. Unfortunately, this is also where we have an admiral using the F word, which I did not like. The more that they try to show Star Trek as this utopian future, which I have thoughts on later about this, the more they also try to ground it in modern day sometimes. I think they do that way too much in Picard. I'll talk about some of that later. The end is the beginning, and we find out more about Picard's resignation and Rafi and their relationship. We also get to see Hugh, the former Borg drone that was freed from the drone influence, and he became an individual. That was one of the great episodes of The Next Gen. And we saw him again later in a later episode, but now years later, like, more than 20 years later, actually, we see Hugh, and he's working on the Borg cube, the artifact, trying to reintegrate the Borg drones that were on the Borg cube, integrate them back into society, restore their personalities, that kind of thing. So I love that they brought another Next Gen alum into the show, but he has this, I kind of think he's found a real noble purpose in the work that he's doing. So I don't know. I really like that. I feel like that's huge character growth for this guest star of a couple episodes of Next Gen. Okay, so here's more boo stuff. I mentioned a character that I did not particularly care for in Picard, and that is Rafi. I did not like how familiar she was with Picard when we see the flashback stuff between them while he was still in Starfleet, referring to him as JL throughout the series. That's a big no for me. In fact, my wife, who is not a big Star Trek fan and did not watch all of Picard with me, she did happen to catch times where Rafi would call Picard JL, and she had the same reaction. She's like, "Nope, that is not right." However, that aside, we do see how Picard has mellowed a bit since the series went off the air, the Next Gen series, including the movies. I mean, they had shown that really beginning with All Good Things, and then through the 4 movies, we do see him kind of starting on that path, and I can see here in this show how that's kind of progressed to that point with him. So that's a nice little bit of continuity that I appreciated. One of the other things I did not like about this episode, and contributed greatly to my dislike of Rafi's character, was her reaction to the news that Picard had resigned in protest. I found that childish and very irritating, because she went from, no, we can fight this. Together we can change their minds, and then as soon as he's like, well, but I resigned, and they accepted. There's nothing more to do there. Then she turned very petulant, I thought. And if Starfleet, as I think Rafi says in this episode, if Starfleet punished her, and that's one of the reasons I think that she got so upset with Picard, was that his decision, how it impacted her. And at first I thought, well, how does it impact you? You are his aide or second in command or whatever. I'm not really sure what her position was with him. All I knew that she was helping him with the Romulans. He resigns, you get reassigned, unless you're just mad that you have to be reassigned now. Anyway, but if it is true that Starfleet punished Rafi in some way because of her association with Picard and his mission with the Romulans, then I have to say, much like the cursing admiral, Starfleet isn't what it used to be, and probably not what it should be. So I didn't like that. Absolute Candor, the episode, we again get to see a new character. This is Elnor, the young Romulan who was trained by the warrior nuns. So I really loved the flashback sequences that we see in this, the relationship with Picard and young Elnor, and just seeing kind of seeing Picard in this hat and the outfit he was wearing. It kind of reminded me, like, a British gentleman on safari kind of a thing. But on the flip side of that, I guess nice to see Picard developing this relationship with this young man or this young boy. He does. Picard does make reference, I think, in the episode, about how, once he resigned and Starfleet wasn't helping the Romulans, he never went back to the planet Vashti, where Elnor and the warrior nuns are. So I guess I would have liked more to see how Picard's decision really impacted him, other than he just kind of feels bad that he never, touched base again with Elnor and the rest. So I don't know. There's a few moments like this throughout the series where they say things, but we're not really shown those things. And so to me, they're not earned, and they have little to no impact to the characters or to the story. So, or to me as a viewer. So I what's the point of even getting into that then? The episode is called Absolute Candor because that is a philosophical concept that these warrior nuns, these Romulans, portray, and thought the idea was interesting. Where basically they don't, because apparently the Romulan society is you hold everything close to your vest or you hide your true feelings, and the absolute candor concept is you are brutally honest, no matter what. So very opposite, like I said, philosophical concept than what we have seen. Or how the Romulans have been shown so far, right? So that's one of the other reasons why I would like the Kawat Maladi, is that right? The warrior nuns. I would love to see more about them and how this came about. And I don't know. I think you could develop a whole series based on this. Maybe not Star Elnor, maybe somebody else, but. There was well, before I move on from that, like I said, while I like that concept, the absolute candor concept, I don't know that it was used consistently throughout the series, and it seemed to be only when convenient to the plot. So again, I have these little nitpicks about how this show was written. And anyway, speaking of, there's a scene where Elnor, after he rebuffs Picard's request to join him, he ultimately obviously does, but I think the pivotal moment is when one of the Romulans that is in the area there where Picard is basically wants to kill Picard in response to Picard abandoning him and all these people that are stranded here on this planet. Which seems like a very honest reaction to the situation, even if we don't necessarily agree with him, his point of view. But then, so, Elnor says basically, walk away or else, and then they end up fighting, and Elnor kills the guy. I realize that by doing that, we see kind of what a badass Elnor is, but why did he have to kill a fellow refugee like that? And not, I don't know, Elnor didn't seem to be bothered by it in any way. So was his reaction, or the way that he dealt with the angry Romulan and his reaction after he killed the angry Romulan, is that an extension of the absolute candor concept? I felt confused by that whole scene and what it means and what it means to the character. Anyway, again, I know I'm being nitpicky, but it's because I love Star Trek. We do see 7 of 9 at the end of the episode, I believe, and she has also changed. She's a lot angrier, for sure. So that was interesting to see this character in this way. I honestly don't remember. I did watch the series finale of Voyager when it aired, but I don't remember where her character was by that point. I know that there was some sort of relationship between her and Chakotay, but I don't know the details because I have not watched all of Voyager. Anyway, she did remind me a lot of the character of Mal from Firefly. So that give you a little comparison there. If you're not familiar, if you haven't watched it yet, anyway. Yeah, this episode, besides me being nitpicky about it, I felt like it seemed like filler. So wait, there's how many episodes here? So there are 10 episodes, with the final episode being a two-parter. And I don't know, maybe they should have done 8 episodes? Because there's a couple episodes in here where it's like, they really didn't need that. They could have introduced these characters or their situations in these other episodes, but whatever. Speaking of, here is my least favorite episode of the whole season, Stardust City Rag. So this is where the crew that Picard has gotten together go to Free Cloud. And this is where I mentioned Picard's French accent. This is where he acts like this. I don't know what he was acting like, but man, not my favorite portrayal of Picard, even undercover. Oof. But the episode did open with another callback character. We have Icheb from Voyager, one of the younger characters they introduced at some point in the series that I think 7 of 9 was a mentor for. And so we see that character. Unfortunately, he is killed. But I think I looked this up and it's accurate. This was the original actor who portrayed that character. So I thought that was really cool that they did that, because they don't do that with Maddox, whom we see. He's portrayed by a different actor than the one who played that character in the Next Generation episode. There's this subplot involving Rafi's son that gets played out here in this episode. It is one of the main reasons why she ended up joining Picard's mission, because she did not want to and refused to when she first appeared in the second episode. And it's because she and her son have an estranged relationship. I think I mentioned that before at the top of the episode. And that either this is part of the reason why I didn't like this episode. Is like we had this long scene, this very uncomfortable scene between Rafi and her son and her son's fiance, or they're having a child. I can't remember. I think they're having a child. And so the son wants nothing to do with Rafi. And part of that is because of, this is what I'm confused about. Did she have these substance abuse issues before or after the estrangement? There's a point also in that scene where basically Rafi's like, I'm clean now, but she's not. I think she lies to him about that, or she's doing better or whatever. Anyway, the scene just, I don't know. I felt like that there was more film that was cut relating to this. It's one thing to say or to reveal that she joined the crew so that she could see her son. But then we have this scene with the son, and then nothing comes out of that, except that sends Rafi into a further spiral of drinking and smoking whatever that is that she was smoking. So she hits his low point, but I don't understand Rafi's character arc in this, because as far as I recall, nothing's really ever resolved. But it is season 1, so maybe we get more of this. I don't know. I just wasn't engaged at all with her and her plight. Instead of empathy in that scene with her and her son, I just felt manipulated. So anyway, also speaking of manipulation, I mentioned Picard's outrageous French accent. Maybe the actors got really enjoyed playing characters in this episode, but it was just way over the top. Like I said, with Picard especially, I, maybe this was just played for laughs, but it's like, why waste the time doing that? This is, like I said, we get to see Maddox finally, and then I think it's towards the end of the episode or at the end of the episode, and Dr. Girardi, who had a relationship with Maddox, we found out, Girardi murders him. And so my initial reaction to that was, because at this, before this, Commodore O came to Girardi and wanted to know what Picard and Girardi talked about, and Girardi told her. And then Commodore O mind melded with Girardi, and we didn't know what that was at that time. And it came to find out that what that mind meld showed Girardi something that caused her to kill Maddox. Which, interesting. What does this mean? Where's it going? Why would someone who purportedly loved this other character, Maddox, why would she kill him? It's just, that set up an interesting mystery to me. But that still didn't save the episode for me. The next episode, The Impossible Box, this has a lot to do with Soji and Narek. So here we are. I guess my only reaction to this episode was we're over halfway through the series, and finally Soji and Picard come together, which seemed kind of weird from a storytelling standpoint. You want to maybe get your lead characters together sooner. I don't know. Yeah, just too much setup with too little payoff, I guess, at this point. And I didn't really find the whole thing between Narek and Soji all that interesting, quite honestly. But it's interesting because we go from a couple of my least favorite episodes, or at least I'm indifferent about The Impossible Box, to my favorite episode of the series, which is Nepenthe. And this is the one where we get the reunion between Picard, Riker, and Troy. So I really, really enjoyed that. We get the emotional impact of Hugh's death, and which really made me hate the character of Narissa. And then the reunion of Picard and Will and Deanna. So I adored this. I remember reading at that time, there was some reference online, and this is before I even saw the episode, regarding the fact that Marina Sirtis got a post-episode credit instead of a guest star billing at the top of the episode, whereas Jonathan Frakes was billed as a special guest star. And that was a lot of hooey, because Marina Sirtis did, I think, just as much in that episode as Frakes did, if not more. And definitely more of the more emotionally satisfying stuff between Deanna and Jean-Luc. So that should never have happened. Marina Sirtis certainly should have gotten a higher billing, I guess, in the episode. So I loved it for the reason that we get these characters back together again, and we see their relationship as it exists today. Within the timeline of this episode, we find out that Riker and Troy had a son who died, but it's also tied to the ban on synthetics that's within the Federation. So that was a little too pat for me, but they're dealing with that grief. They have a daughter, Kestra, that's there, which she was the actress who played her was delightful. Brought a lot of life to the daughter character, which I thought was neat. I wouldn't mind seeing more in future Picard episodes with the Rikers, or the Riker Troys, or the Troy. Who knows how the surname goes with different cultures like that. But I really like the episode for all the reunion stuff. But at the same time, well, I'll get to that. I'll get to that reaction later. I'll talk about the disparity here that I want to get to. Next episode is Broken Pieces. We get more backstory, especially with Rios. In earlier episodes, Rios is very reluctant to take on Picard's mission, but he does anyway, and we find out really why, because he is former Starfleet. He believes, or did believe, in Starfleet's mission, and he feels very loyal to certain members of Starfleet, one of whom was his former captain, who we find out murdered 2 people on Starfleet's orders, specifically Commodore O's orders, and then he couldn't live with the fact that he did this and committed suicide. And so Rios was struggling with that in regards to Picard, because he felt that the Picard and his former captain were similar men, I guess, and was worried about how this would be. We also find out that Commander O is at least half Romulan and has infiltrated Starfleet, and also is behind the Mars attack that caused the Federation to turn its back on the Romulans and put the synthetic ban in place. So a lot of things being juggled here in this plot in this episode. Speaking of Rios's former captain and what he did, continuing what I said before about Starfleet, my issue with Starfleet, the cursing admiral that I've mentioned before. It seems like the Starfleet of this time, or at least certain factions of it, appear to be morally corrupt. I find it hard to believe that any Starfleet captain would commit murder simply on one person's order. We've seen multiple episodes over many series, Star Trek series, where the officers have a conscience and they would rather be court-martialed instead. So why did this captain do this? I mean, think about Star Trek Insurrection. Picard and his crew risked court-martial by refusing to transport the Baku in that movie. It had nothing to do with murder. And yet this guy is just going to kill 2 people based on someone's orders. I just, the explanations I think in this episode are just too easy. Too much expediency to the plot, I guess, is my objection to this information. Also, Girardi in this episode offers to turn herself in for murdering Maddox. There's a comment in the episode about the mind meld reveal of the Destroyer prophecy having driven her temporarily crazy. And I guess with the implication being that she is somehow absolved of her murdering Maddox, which I thought was a huge cop-out. I thought that the actress, though, portraying her emotional state, did a very good job regarding what she did and how she reacts to it. And anyway, she did a really good job. I really liked that character. I really liked that actress and her portrayal of the character. So I'm pleased that I think that she's going to be in the second season. If really all I need, I think, is Picard, Girardi, and Rios, and then they can bring in other characters if they want. But really, just those 3, and I'd be happy. And then finally, on this episode, no, this is again nerdy, nitpicky stuff. I know, but continuity wise, if the Zhat Vash have been in existence for so long, why did they never come for Data before? Because he is synthetic life. So, little continuity error, I think, there, but whatever. We'll just ignore that for now. And then finally, the final 2 episodes, Et in Arcadia Ego. We had parts 1 and 2. I enjoyed those, the season finale for the most part, probably the first part more. I really liked, so when they get to the synth planet, I forget the name of it now, if it had a name, the Borg cube and the La Serena encounter the planetary defense system, which are these orchids, these giant flowers. I thought, boy, out of all of the tech stuff that we may see in this series, the biosynthetics, that's kind of neat, But those orchids, that was the coolest thing, I think, out of the whole series. Just the visual of it, the idea behind it, it's like, that's really cool. But then we go back to familiar tropes, which, namely, we get Brent Spiner playing another Soong character. I had in my notes, I had written in my notes, at least we shouldn't have to see any Soong character again. And then as I was preparing or going over my notes today to record this episode, I found some references online to that the producers would like to bring Brent Spiner back as Alton Soong. So, oh well. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like Brent Spiner. I like his performances. I'm so tired of the Soong legacy, I guess. The dynasty of Soong. I don't know. Ugh. And his most recent incarnation, Alton Soong, I found his and the synthetics that are on this planet, their acceptance of the helpful nature of the extra-dimensional synthetic beings that have been central to the entire plot of this series so far, to be a little too accepting and quite naive. Why do they just assume that everything's going to work out for them based on this so-called prophecy? I don't know. It seemed, as a scientist for Soong, and as maybe I'm unfairly thinking of the synthetics as more like Data, which is more computational. Why would they just accept this stuff? Anyway, nitpicky stuff, I know. Also in this finale, the season finale, the fact that Picard is dying is accentuated and thrust upon us because of the crash that has exacerbated his condition. So there's that. But for a season finale, there was quite a bit of Picard in these 2 hours where the character Picard is just not around, or he's lying down, resting. I know it's part of the fact that he's dying, but it just seemed weird that the star of the show isn't around. And I wonder if they added this plot point to the character so that our aging Patrick Stewart doesn't have to be as present as much in the filming of the show. But it just seemed kind of weird. Once the synthetics, or once Picard starts arguing against the synthetics, inviting the extra dimensional synthetics to come into the universe and kill all life, organic life, they basically house arrest him. And then we don't really see much of him for a while. At least that's how I remember it. Speaking of these synthetic aliens coming through the portal that they're building, or they build briefly anyway, it reminded me too much of the robots in the Matrix films. Their look. I mean, it looks menacing, but at the same time, it's like, you could have gone with something a little different that didn't evoke something that's very familiar to science fiction film fans. Other things, Riker shows up leading the cavalry, but all the ships look the same on both sides between the Romulans and the Federation. Why does Starfleet, or is it just Riker's decision to just let the Romulans go at the end? We do have the ending of the show here where Picard and Data have this lovely discussion. So that's one of my favorite scenes of the show. I think Data proves once and for all that he has reached his life goal of becoming more like a human, or or human, really, in his request to be allowed to die with dignity, finally. However, there's no resolution to the father-daughter portion of the story between Data and Soji. But maybe we don't need it. But without it, I felt like that was kind of a lost thread. And given what Picard is now, i.e. a synth himself, a biosynth himself, where does this series go next? Is the second season is about him completing what he failed to do 20 years ago with the Romulans? Does it go somewhere different? I know that Whoopi Goldberg was invited by Patrick Stewart to come to come and be on Picard season 2 as Guinan. So that's it's kind of neat. At one point, LeVar Burton was in talks to join as well, and I also heard that Worf may show up. So is Picard just going to end up being a Next Generation reunion show? Do we really want that, or do we need that? And I say that, and this is what I was alluding to earlier when I was talking about Nepenthe. I say this knowing that the reunion episode was my favorite. So I'm of two minds about this. I don't want it to be just a Star Trek: The Next Generation reunion show. I want it to move these characters and the universe forward, to go into different areas and explore strange new worlds and things like that. So I don't know. So how does Star Trek Picard stack up beyond the agreeable nostalgia, or is it fan service? I kept coming back to, as I did with Star Trek Discovery Season 1, is this Star Trek? Is this my Star Trek? Is this what Star Trek should be? All these questions. And I guess the answer is yes. It's certainly a newer style of Trek, but it's one that I don't necessarily like. And this is the reaction I had with Star Trek Discovery Season 1 and, for the most part, Season 2. I think Trek has gotten too dark and cynical and mirrors our world a bit too much. Now, on one hand, you can mine a lot of good stories and character development potentially with that. And, art does reflect the time in which it is created. And the original Star Trek did that too. I guess I just don't like our time, and I don't want to see it in one of my favorite entertainment. I've always disagreed with Gene Roddenberry's dictum on The Next Generation that the Enterprise crew should not quarrel amongst themselves because 24th century humanity had evolved beyond such petty and base emotions because of how restrictive it was to tell engaging character stories. However, I find myself now wishing that dictum were still being followed to some point. But this is where this new Star Trek status quo, I guess, has put me. I feel a bit like a man out of touch with this property. So I guess in one respect, I do identify with Picard as he is at the beginning of the series. So maybe that's enough to keep me interested, to keep me going. I mean, I'm going to watch Picard Season 2. Don't get me wrong. But is there a point at which I am watching Picard and Discovery and I go, well, this is not for me. This is no longer Star Trek to me. And I'm a bit worried about that. I don't want to keep watching it just because it is Star Trek. I want to watch good Star Trek. And that's not to say that the previous series that we've had with the original Next Gen, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise. That's not to say all of those episodes were good. They weren't. In fact, a lot of the complaints I have about this season of Picard, I could level at any of the seasons of any Star Trek series. I don't know. I guess it's just I'm reacting more, like I said, to the feeling of Star Trek, the way it is being portrayed these days, and not liking it so much. Anyway, well, that's kind of ending on a dour note a little bit, I think. For a future show, that's I don't think that's right, and I think that's part of, again, the reaction I'm having to Star Trek. So I guess we'll see. I've heard that Lower Decks is a lot of fun, and it is celebrates Star Trek's past, pokes a little bit of fun at it, but also is engaging and moving things forward. Now, that's just a interpretation of things that I'm gleaning from reading stuff online and seeing clips I've seen, but we shall see, I guess. So it'll be fun to watch Lower Decks, Discovery Season 3, Picard Season 2, and see how Star Trek is evolving and how I react to that. And I'd like to know how you are reacting to this dilemma, the situation, as I am trying to process myself now. But I guess more particularly, how did you like Season 1 of Picard? Let me know. I'd appreciate it. You can, as I said before earlier, you can send me email at longboxreview@gmail.com, or you can chat with me on Twitter at longboxreview, or you can leave comments at the website longboxreview.com. I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.